Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for another list, and today it's going to be my picks for the 10 best thrash metal bands. Tons of great ones to choose from. Finally got it narrowed down to 10. I'll give some honorable mentions after I say my number 2 pick. So without further ado, here we go. Starting the list off at number 10 is going to be Metallica, and right off the bat I'm probably going to upset some of you guys because I'm sure a lot of people think they should be higher, but just overall I think they're a bit overrated, but I still do like their earlier stuff. Kill 'Em All is a great album, their first one, that's my favorite. Ride the Lightning is great. Master of Puppets, pretty good, but I think it's a bit overrated. Definitely wouldn't say it's one of the best of all time like a lot of people do. And Justice for All is really good as well. And even the Black Album is pretty good, but it's not really thrash. Just a few really overplayed songs on that album that get annoying. But there is some good stuff on there, and I'd probably say Death Magnetic is also pretty good. And the rest, not so much. Not a fan of any of the other stuff, really. But, yeah, so Metallica is going to be my number 10 band. Yep, next. Up at number 9 is going to be Testament, a really good band formed back in 1982. They actually went by the name Legacy at first. They changed it in 86 to Testament. Released their debut album in 1987 called The Legacy. That's a really great album. And then their second album called The New Order is probably my favorite. It's between that one and The Ritual from 1992. Kind of an underrated pick with The Ritual, but I think that's a really, really good album. And this band was really close with the next band. Sometimes, like, depending on the day, it could flip-flop. But, yeah, so Testament at number 9. Some people might be like, what, Testament over Metallica? But, yeah, and really the main reason... Well, first off, Testament just has more good albums. And Alex Skolnick smokes Kirk Hammett. If you compare them head-to-head, way better guitar player. Great tone, lots of great riffs. Really awesome player, Alex Skolnick. And... Chuck Billy, pretty good vocalist for thrash. But, yeah, so Testament is my number 9. So number 8 is Exodus, another band from California. All the first 3 are California bands, and as you will be able to tell throughout this list, I'm an American thrash guy. Majority of these bands are from America, but there's a few that aren't, so just wait for it. But Exodus, something that kind of separates them from the first 2 bands is that their like 21st century material is amazing. Shovel-Headed Kill Machine and Exhibit A and B are both great, or all 3 are great albums. I think Fabulous Disaster is probably my favorite, though, and of course, Bonded by Blood, their first album is great. So a really good band. Gary Holt is a great guitarist. They've had several different singers, but it doesn't really matter who's singing. All pretty good, but Steve Salza is my favorite. And, yeah, they should be releasing a new album next year, I think. Everybody's waiting on it, so hopefully that comes out soon. Exodus, number 8. Taking the number 7 spot is going to be Flotsam and Jetsam. Really great band, formed back in 1981 in Phoenix, Arizona. Really their first 4 albums, from Doomsday, For the Deceiver, and up through Quattro, all really good. I think the second album, No Place for Disgrace, is their masterpiece. Amazing album. And they've had some really great albums like recently. The Cold, Ugly Noise, Dreams of Death, all really good. Even their album from this year is pretty good. But the thing that separates this band, I think, is the vocals from Eric Knudsen. Really great vocalist. It's really between him and the next band's vocalist I have on the list for being the best thrash vocalist, I think. So he's right up there at the top, maybe the best, Eric Knudsen, for thrash vocals. Awesome singer. And yeah, overall, Flotsam and Jetsam is just a really underrated band, so definitely would recommend to go check them out if you haven't listened to them, or if you just know like one or two of their albums. Definitely go through their stuff, give it all a listen, because there's a lot of great stuff in there. Number 7, Flotsam and Jetsam.
Evil Race!
Death Angel in at number 6, really awesome band, and I actually just saw them in concert a few days ago. Amazing show, kind of what made me want to do this list, honestly, or well, get back to trying to finish this list, but killer show, definitely still an amazing live band, definitely go see them if you have a chance. Mark Osageda on vocals is a really great singer, definitely, as I said before, one of the best thrash vocalists, top 2 if you ask me. And Rob Cavestany on guitar, or Cavestany, I don't know exactly how he pronounces that, but Rob Cavestany on guitar, amazing player, great tone, tons of great riffs. And with Death Angel, of course, the first 3 albums, all really good. My favorite is actually Frolic Through the Park. A lot of people say the Ultraviolence is their best, but Frolic Through the Park, I think, is their best album. But, you know, their last, like, 4 albums in a row, really everything since they reformed in 2004 with The Art of Dying, that's a great album. The Dream Calls for Blood is a great album. Evil Divide, you know, overall I don't think that's the strongest album, but The Moth, that's one of the best songs of all time. That's amazing. Even their album from this year, Humanicide, really good. Might see it on my end of the year list coming up here soon. So yeah, Death Angel is a really great band. Definitely very underrated. Kind of disrespected a little bit, I think, because everybody's always talking about the Bay Area thrash bands, and they're usually, you know, at the bottom. But here, they're pretty high up amongst Testament and Exodus, Metallica. I've got Death Angel up above all of them. So, Death Angel, number 6. Probably the most surprising pick on the list, Holy Moses in at number 5. Really great German thrash band, formed back in the early 80s. They have 11 albums total. Sabina Klassen has been their vocalist on all the albums. Besides that, they have had a revolving door of members. Andy Klassen was the guitarist on the first 7 albums. Great player. He was Sabina's husband back then, or for like that time period, for 7 or so albums. They've gotten divorced since, but he played guitar, obviously, on the New Machine of Liechtenstein. Great album, amazing stuff there. That's probably a top 10 thrash album of all time. I think I ranked it like 9th or 8th previously in one of my videos, but Uli Kusch does the drumming on that album. Some of you may know him from being in Halloween and Gamma Ray, great drummer. So everything from the New Machine of Liechtenstein up through Reborn Dogs in 92. So those 4 albums, all amazing, great stuff. And I think the album Strength, Power, Will, Passion is awesome. Redefine Mayhem is a great album that came out in 2014. Look out for that on the next list, or one of my upcoming lists I have working on. It's going to be the top 25 albums of the decade. So 2010 to 2019, that might make an appearance. But yeah, overall, really great band. One of my most listened to bands on my Spotify Wrapped thing I just saw recently. They were at like number 4 on that. I think that they're very underrated, definitely deserve a lot more recognition. Really like extreme vocals from Sabina Klassen. You really wouldn't expect this to be a girl if you like didn't know who she was already. But as the band progresses, her vocals get more like of a death metal style. But the music stays thrash, very raw and aggressive type of stuff. Awesome stuff. You know, if you like Exodus, you're going to like this. So definitely go listen to everything in their catalog. Holy Moses, number 5. In at number 4 is going to be Annihilator. Jeff Waters is their main man, obviously. He's played on every single album. Really great guitarist, very technical player. Tons of great riffs, solos, songs from him that he's written. And something that, I say this every time I mention Annihilator in a video, but it's pretty dumb, I think, when metal fans just say, oh, Annihilator only has 2 good albums. No, yes, the first 2 albums are probably their best. Never Neverland is definitely their best album. And Alice in Hell is great, but just because the other stuff isn't quite as good as those albums does not mean the rest of the stuff is bad. So, highly recommend going through their stuff. Obviously, Set the World on Fire is great. King of the Kill, Remains, Criteria for a Black Widow. Even the stuff like into the 2000s. Carnival Diablos is good. Waking the Fury is good. Their self-titled album from 2010 is good. So, tons of great stuff. People need to stop just sticking with the first 2 albums. Go through and give their stuff a chance. You won't regret it. Lots of great solos, riffs, as usual, from Jeff Waters on everything. They have a new album coming out next year, and I'm sure that's going to be pretty good as well. So, yeah, number 4, Annihilator. Amazing band. Slayer is going to come in at number 3. Great band. I'm sure like every freaking thrash fan likes Slayer. They just retired. Will they stay retired is the question. I don't think so. I'm sure they'll be back in like 3 years, but we'll see if they stick to it. My favorite album by them is Seasons in the Abyss. I think God Hates Us All is a great album, a top 5 or 6 album from them. Obviously, everything from the 80s is great. Even Divine Intervention is good. Christ Illusion is good. So, you know, they have tons of great stuff to choose from. Everyone knows Slayer is a great band. Number 3. Number 2 is going to be Overkill, super underrated band, an absolute machine when it comes to releasing albums since 1985, their debut Feel the Fire, up through 2019. They've released 19 albums. That's insane. But, you know, it would be one thing if they were just putting out duds, you know, not good stuff, but every single album has good stuff on it. I'm not going to go through all of them, but my favorites from before 2000 are this right here, Horoscope, one of the best thrash albums of all time, and 1989's The Years of Decay. And then my favorites after 2000, I'd probably say are Ironbound from 2010 and The Electric Age from 2012. So, tons of great stuff. They have so many good albums, amazing band. The only 2 consistent members, though, that have played on every single album are Bobby Blitz on vocals and Dee Dee Verney on bass. But it doesn't really matter who they get. Bobby Gustafson or not, everything is good. So, Overkill is number 2. And I'm sure everyone knows who number 1 is going to be if you've been following the channel for a while. But some bands that I have listed down as honorable mentions that were pretty close, you know, you've got Sodom, Nuclear Assault, Razor, you know, those bands all pretty close to making it. There's more too, but we don't got all day here. So, on to number 1. Number 1 has to be Megadeth. in my opinion, the greatest band of all time, so they're going to be number one on any of my lists. Dave Mustaine is a beast, an absolute genius when it comes to writing songs and solos and all that stuff. So, yeah, my favorite lineup of the band is the Rust in Peace era with Marty Friedman on guitar, with Dave Mustaine, Nick Menza on drums, and David Ellefson on bass. You know, Rust in Peace is a masterpiece. Peace Sells But Who's Buying is a masterpiece. Tons of great albums they have. You know, So Far So Good So What is great. Killing Is My Business and Business is good. And then, you know, Countdown to Extinction isn't super thrashy. That's obviously a great album. But then a couple albums that aren't thrash there. And then they come back, you know, in the 2000s with a lot of great stuff. Endgame is awesome. United Abominations is awesome. Dystopia on my wall back there obviously is great. But, yeah, so tons of great stuff from Megadeth. And, yeah, so that is my ranking. Top 10 thrash bands of all time. Obviously, everybody has their favorites. You know, Sepultura is another one I should have listed in my honorable mentions, so don't get too mad, guys. But you can list your top 10. Let me know what you thought of the video. And until next time, thank you for watching.